When we hear the phrase, act as if you are the best, many people recoil. They hear arrogance, they hear ego, they hear someone trying to be better than everyone else. But what if I told you that acting as if you're the best has nothing to do with being superior and everything to do with believing in yourself before anyone else does? See, there's a difference between arrogance and belief. Arrogance says, I'm better than you. Belief says, I have something to offer. Arrogance is loud, aggressive, constantly seeking validation. Belief, real belief, is quiet, it's steady, it's humble, but it's powerful. It allows you to walk into a room and not shrink. It allows you to face challenges and not flinch. It lets you speak up when you're scared and keep going when others stop. Every person who ever made a dent in the universe, whether it was building a company, leading a team, changing a culture, or shifting the way we think, started with belief. And often they had to believe before there was any evidence they were the best. No trophies, no applause, no external proof, just conviction. Let me ask you something. How do you expect the world to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself first? I remember a conversation I once had with a young woman starting her own business. She was talented, brilliant even, but she kept using phrases like, I'm not sure, or I don't know if people will take me seriously, or there are others who are better than me. I stopped her and asked, do you believe in what you're building? She paused. I think so, she said. No, I told her, it's not enough. You have to believe it so deeply that even when they laugh, you keep going. Even when they doubt, you stay focused. Even when you feel like quitting, you remember why you started. Because here's the truth. The world takes its cues from you. If you don't walk into the room like you have something valuable to offer, why should anyone else treat you that way? If you speak like you don't trust your own ideas, how can others be expected to follow you? Confidence is contagious, but so is insecurity. And before you think this is just a speech about faking it, let's be clear. This is not about pretending to be someone you're not. This is about showing up as the truest version of yourself, fully convinced that you matter. It's about standing up for your values, your voice, your contribution, even when no one else is standing with you yet. One of the greatest leaders I ever met told me the most important decision I made was to trust myself before others did. He didn't mean he had all the answers. He meant he had to start with the belief that he could find them. It's funny how the world works. The moment you carry yourself like you belong, people begin to treat you like you do. And not because you fooled them, but because belief is magnetic. It draws others in. It inspires trust. It creates momentum. Think of every athlete who walked onto a court believing they could win long before the crowd cheered. Think of every entrepreneur who pitched an idea no one understood yet. Think of every student who raised their hand even when their voice trembled. They weren't acting superior, they were acting as if they mattered. And that, my friend, changes everything. When we tell people, act as if you're the best, we're not saying become arrogant. We're saying stop waiting for permission, stop waiting for applause, stop waiting for someone to tell you you're worthy, start acting like you are. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you finally understand that no one is better than you either. You have something in you that no one else has, that unique mix of your life experience, your perspective, your imagination, that can't be replicated. And yet we live in a world that tries to homogenize us. It tries to make us believe that there's a formula for greatness, and if we don't fit it, we should just stay quiet. But what if the formula is simply this? Act like you already are the person you're becoming. We often think belief comes after success, but in reality, success comes after belief. Belief is the seed. Without it, nothing grows. With it, everything starts. So yes, act like you're the best. Not because you need to be better than others, but because you need to be the best version of yourself. Act like your ideas are worth hearing. Act like your vision matters, because it does. And here's the beautiful part. When you start to believe it, other people start to believe it too. Your belief creates a ripple effect. It inspires others to see themselves differently, to walk taller, to dream bigger. That's not ego. That's leadership. In a world full of noise, doubt, and distraction, the quiet certainty of self-belief is a revolution. It challenges the status quo. It shifts cultures. It opens doors. So no, this is not a call to arrogance. It's a call to alignment between who you are, what you believe, and how you show up. Because once you stop doubting yourself, you'll be amazed how the world starts to take notice. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our habits, our mindset, our beliefs about what we're capable of. And when we tell someone to act as if they are the best, what we're really asking them to do is change the way they carry themselves. Not as a performance, but as a reflection of a deeper belief. Because the way you act begins to shape the way you think. And the way you think shapes the way you perform. We often think success is something we chase, something out there, something we can finally hold once we've earned it. But the truth is, we don't attract success by trying harder. We attract it by becoming the kind of person who naturally performs at a higher level. And that begins internally. It begins with how we show up, how we see ourselves, how we speak to ourselves when no one else is around. It begins with how we act. Think of it like this. If you wake up every day and act like someone who's afraid to fail, your decisions will reflect that fear. You'll avoid risk. You'll play small. You'll wait to speak. You'll stay quiet when you should step up. And not because you're not good enough, but because you've rehearsed every day the behavior of someone who doubts themselves. You've trained yourself to be less than what you are. Now imagine you wake up and act like someone who believes they are capable of doing something great. You still feel fear, of course you do, but you make decisions as if you're the kind of person who moves forward anyway. You raise your hand, you pitch the idea, you lead the meeting, you take the next step even when it's hard. That shift in behavior starts to rewire the way you think. You start to collect new data about yourself. You begin to prove to your own mind that you can be the kind of person who rises. You don't wait to feel confident. You behave confidently, and that behavior breeds real confidence over time. It's a cycle. The way you act impacts the way you think. The way you think influences what you believe you deserve, and what you believe you deserve affects what you pursue, what you ask for, what you accept. It's never just about the actions. It's about the identity being formed in the process. This is why so many people stay stuck. Not because they lack potential, not because they lack skill, but because their actions are tied to a version of themselves that plays it safe. They keep waiting for a reason to change their behavior, a promotion, an award, someone to finally notice them. But the shift doesn't start with the reward, it starts with the behavior. It starts when you decide to carry yourself differently, as if the reward is inevitable. As if success is not a lottery, but a consequence of who you are becoming. There's a subtle but powerful distinction here. Acting as if you're the best doesn't mean faking it. It means choosing to live in alignment with your potential rather than your past. Most of us act based on our history, what's happened to us, what we've failed at, what we've been told. But what if you chose to act based on what's possible for you instead? When we embody our potential before the results show up, something profound happens. We stop waiting, we stop hiding, we stop negotiating with fear. And in that space, we begin to perform differently. Because now we're not protecting a fragile ego, we're building something bigger than ourselves. One of the most important shifts you can make in your life is this. Start behaving like the person you want to become. Not once you get there, but now. Do the things that kind of person would do. Speak the way they'd speak. Walk into rooms the way they'd walk in, with posture, presence, purpose. It's not a costume, it's a commitment. And over time, it becomes your default. Think about great leaders. The ones who inspire, who influence, who make people feel seen. They didn't start that way because someone gave them permission. They started acting like leaders long before the title ever arrived. They showed up early, they supported others, they took responsibility. And little by little, people started treating them like leaders because they had already become one. So if you want to be great, start by acting like someone who is. Not to impress others, but to impress upon yourself that you're capable of it. Act like the best doesn't mean pretending to be perfect. It means showing up even when you don't feel ready. It means having higher standards for yourself in how you speak, how you listen, how you treat people. It means committing to the process even when there's no applause, no instant payoff, no guarantee, because that's what the best do. They act with purpose. They act with discipline. They act as if their choices matter because they know they do. And as they continue to act that way, they start to outperform even their own expectations. Not because they were born better, but because they behaved differently. We all have that choice right now, today. We can keep waiting until we feel ready, until someone tells us we're good enough, until we get the evidence we're looking for, or we can act like the kind of person who's already on the path to becoming the best, not above others, but above our former selves. The truth is, you don't change your life by dreaming about a different future. You change it by behaving differently in the present. And when your actions align with your highest potential, everything starts to shift. Your mindset, your results, your identity act as if you're the best, not because you need to convince others, but because you need to remind yourself that you've always had what it takes. When you act like it, think like it, and live like it, that belief becomes real. And when belief becomes real, greatness follows. We live in a world obsessed with comparison. From a young age, we're taught to measure ourselves against others. Who's faster? Who's smarter? Who gets picked first? Who has more followers? It never stops. The race becomes relentless. And somewhere along the way, we start to believe that being the best means being better than someone else. But what if that's not true? What if no one is better than you? Not because you're perfect, but because you are the only one with your story. No one else has lived your life. No one else has your exact voice, your way of thinking, your mix of experiences, your lens on the world. That's not a poetic idea. That's a biological and psychological fact. You are unrepeatable. It's strange, isn't it? We spend so much of our energy trying to copy what works for others. We mimic their steps. We study their paths. We try to fit ourselves into a mold we were never designed to fit in. And we wonder why we feel like imposters. We wonder why we feel like we don't belong. The truth is, we're chasing someone else's version of success instead of owning the value of our own uniqueness. There's something powerful that happens when a person stops trying to be someone else and starts leaning fully into who they already are. That's not ego, that's clarity, that's alignment. That's what authenticity looks like. And that's where real confidence comes from. Not from pretending to be the best, but from realizing that no one else can bring what you bring. Every person in history who left a mark did so because they stopped trying to fit in. They embraced the weird parts, the broken parts, the original parts of themselves. They saw their uniqueness not as a flaw, but as a feature. That's what gave them an edge, because while others were busy competing, they were focused on creating something only they could offer. We tend to underestimate the power of our own story. We look at our pain, our setbacks, our disappointments, and we think those things disqualify us from greatness. But what if they are the very things that make us valuable? What if the challenges you faced gave you a perspective that someone else desperately needs? What if the very thing you're trying to hide is the thing that sets you apart? You see, people don't connect with perfection, they connect with humanity. They connect with honesty, with vulnerability, with someone willing to say, here's what I've been through, here's what I've learned, here's what I still don't know, but I'm showing up anyway. That's what makes you trustworthy. That's what makes you memorable. That's what makes you, in your own way, the best. We often talk about finding our voice, but maybe it's less about finding and more about remembering. Remembering that your voice has always been there. That it was never supposed to sound like anyone else's. That your value isn't found in how many people agree with you. It's found in how fully you show up, regardless. You don't need to be louder than everyone else. You just need to be clearer. Clear about who you are. Clear about what matters to you. Clear about why you do what you do. Because when that clarity is present, confidence follows. And when confidence follows, people start to notice. They're drawn to people who are comfortable in their own skin. Not because they're flawless, but because they've stopped apologizing for who they are. Imagine walking into every room, every conversation, every opportunity with the mindset that no one there is better than you. Not out of arrogance, out of grounded awareness, out of the understanding that everyone in that room brings something different, and that value isn't a competition, it's a collaboration. That you bring your perspective and they bring theirs, and together something powerful can happen. That's when you stop performing and start contributing. That's when you stop hiding and start leading. That's when people stop seeing you as someone trying to prove themselves and start seeing you as someone worth listening to. Your story, the way you got here, matters more than you think. Maybe it didn't look like someone else's. Maybe it wasn't neat or impressive or easy to explain. But it shaped you, it sharpened you. It gave you eyes to see things others miss. It gave you empathy, resilience, creativity. And those things, they're more valuable than any title, any resume, any follower count. We're so quick to admire others for what makes them unique, but so slow to honor our own uniqueness. We say things like, I'm just not like them. But that's the point. You're not like them. You're you, and that's not a liability. That's an asset. What would change if you stopped waiting to be more like someone else and started investing fully in becoming more like yourself? What would shift if you stopped comparing your step 2 to someone else's step 10? You don't become the best by copying the best. You become the best by becoming more deeply yourself. Day by day, choice by choice. You commit to your growth, not your image. You pursue mastery, not mimicry. Because in the end, the people we admire most are the ones who remind us that it's okay to be ourselves. They give us permission to stop pretending, to start owning who we are, to believe that our voice matters even if it sounds different. That's the power of authenticity. That's the edge that can't be replicated. That's the kind of greatness that doesn't just win, it lasts. So yes, act as if you were the best, but understand what that really means. It doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you've stopped questioning your worth. It means you've made peace with your story. It means you've chosen to show up as the full version of yourself, not the filtered one. Because no one is better than you, not in a comparative sense, but in the sense that no one can replace you. And that is more than enough. There's a moment in every journey where you have to decide, do I wait for the world to notice me, or do I show up like I already belong? That moment, subtle, often quiet, is when we choose whether to be passive observers or active participants in our own lives. And here's the truth most people don't want to talk about. People don't follow those who wait to be validated. They follow those who have already committed. We are drawn to people who act with certainty, not because they're loud or flashy, but because there's something about the way they move, the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, that says, I know why I'm here. And that certainty doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from alignment, from showing up with a quiet confidence that says, I don't need permission to lead. I've already decided to. It's easy to underestimate the power of posture, not the physical kind, but the posture of your energy. When you walk into a room, are you asking for validation or are you offering value? That posture changes everything. It's not about faking strength. It's about owning your presence. And that presence isn't built overnight. It's built through consistency. Through the small decisions repeated daily that train your brain to believe, I am worth listening to. We live in a culture where everyone wants to be noticed, but few are willing to develop the inner substance that actually draws attention in a meaningful way. Because here's what most people miss. Presence is not about being the loudest voice. It's about being the most rooted voice. When you know who you are and what you stand for, people can feel it. You don't need to sell yourself. You simply show up and your energy does the work. I once sat across from a leader, not a CEO, not a big name, just a middle manager, but I remember the way she held the space. She listened deeply. She spoke slowly. She wasn't trying to impress me. She was simply present. And I'll never forget how I felt walking away from that conversation, not because of what she said, but because of how she was. That's leadership. That's presence. And it has nothing to do with status. It has everything to do with how you carry yourself, moment by moment. The challenge is we've been taught to shrink, to make ourselves small, to downplay our strengths so we don't seem arrogant. But there's a difference between humility and hiding. Humility says, I am aware I don't know everything. Hiding says, I'm afraid someone will see me. And the longer you hide, the more you begin to believe that you don't belong, that you're not ready, that you have to wait for someone else to choose you. But what if you chose yourself first? What if instead of waiting to be given a seat at the table, you brought your own chair? Acting like you are the best isn't about proving your superiority, it's about honoring your potential. It's about showing up in such a way that others begin to see you differently, not because you changed who you are. Your presence gave them permission to believe in you because you first believed in yourself. This kind of presence doesn't yell, it doesn't demand, it simply is. And in a world full of noise, presence is a rare form of power. The power to lead without force, to influence without manipulation, to be respected, not because of your title, but because of your integrity. But here's the hard part. Presence is a choice you make before anyone else sees it in you. You act like you belong in the room before the room agrees. You lead before you're called a leader. You set standards before anyone is watching. That's the work. That's the discipline. And that's what separates those who wait from those who lead. There's an old saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I believe that's true, especially when it comes to the way we carry ourselves. If you treat your current space with respect, if you act like it matters, if you speak with purpose, even when the stakes feel small, you're training yourself for greatness, not for show, but for service. Not to inflate your ego, but to sharpen your presence. One of the most important habits I ever learned was this. Enter every room with the mindset that you belong there and you're there to contribute. That combination, confidence and contribution, creates a magnetic force. People trust you more, they listen more closely, they ask for your opinion, not because you told them you're the best, but because you acted like someone who values their role, however small. And that's the paradox. When you stop trying to impress and start trying to impact, people begin to see you as impressive. When you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing to serve, people start choosing you. So yes, act like you're the best. But understand that the essence of that phrase isn't about puffing up your chest. It's about walking with intention, speaking with integrity, showing up fully engaged, being someone people can count on, trust, follow. Not because you've demanded it, but because your presence has earned it. If you want to lead, don't just work on your resume, work on your presence. The way you enter conversations, the way you handle setbacks, the way you respond to tension, all of it communicates something. People don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. And when your energy says, I know who I am and I know what I bring, they listen. That's the power of acting like you are the best. Not to elevate yourself above others, but to elevate the moment you're in. To bring your full self, fully committed, without apology. Presence is not given, it is cultivated. And when you commit to showing up every day like you matter, like your voice matters, your work matters, your contribution matters, something shifts. Others begin to respond. Not because you're shouting, because your presence is undeniable. So stop waiting to feel ready. Start acting like someone who's already preparing to make a difference, because once you show up like you're meant to be here, people will start treating you like you are. There comes a point in life when you realize that waiting is a trap. Waiting to feel confident, waiting to be perfect, waiting for someone to tell you you're ready. And the truth is, most people never stop waiting. They live their entire lives just a few steps behind the moment they were meant to step into, not because they weren't capable, but because they didn't give themselves permission to act as if they were ready enough. That's what this idea really comes down to. Acting as if you are the best isn't about ego. It's not about pretending you're better than anyone. It's about realizing that right now, in this moment, you have everything you need to take the next step forward. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel more confident. Now, Confidence isn't something you wait for. Confidence is something you earn by showing up even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. Confidence is built in the doing, not the waiting. We don't grow by standing still. We grow by leaning into the discomfort, by choosing courage over comfort again and again. The reason most people never become who they're meant to be is because they get stuck thinking that greatness is something far away, something other people have, something reserved for a different kind of person. But greatness isn't found on the horizon. It's found in the decision to act today like your voice matters, like your contribution counts, like your presence has weight. Think about the people who've made the biggest difference in your life. Not the celebrities, not the polished speakers. The real ones. The teachers who saw potential in you before you saw it in yourself. The friends who showed up when